Am I the a-hole for cutting off a friend who slept with my friend's ex behind her back? Before I begin, I apologize for any spelling errors or grammatical mistakes. I will do my utmost to ensure that this is as clear and comprehensible as possible. This incident took place last year in August, so it has been quite a while since then. However, I feel it is essential to provide a background on how the situation unfolded. I am a 16-year-old female currently in high school, and I belong to a friend group consisting of 7 other girls. We have been close since February 2024 and share strong bonds. There is another large group of girls in our grade with whom we do not get along. Prior to February, nothing notable had occurred between our groups, no arguments or unpleasant remarks, everything was quite peaceful. Both groups acknowledged our mutual dislike, but not everyone in high school needs to get along. We are simply quite different individuals. For context, we used to be friends with a girl from our group who later joined the other one. This girl I mentioned was gradually trying to reconnect with us again since the other girls treated her poorly, as well as everyone else. Meanwhile, the primary girl in the other group was intentionally trying to annoy me by making derogatory comments about minor aspects of my appearance, prompting me to report her to the school office. My school is not very effective in handling such situations. This action led to an ongoing cycle of bullying. In summary, this girl is unpleasant, and I would prefer not to engage with her. I recognize that this may seem like trivial high school drama, but the events escalated far beyond being simply minor issues. From this point onward, I will refer to the individuals involved by different names to minimize confusion. I will refer to the girl attempting to reconnect with us as Chloe. One day, while I was homesick from school, I received a message in our group chat from my friend, stating that Chloe was crying in the restroom because her group was ignoring her and being unkind. My friend, who had previously been very close to Chloe, was informed by her. My friend requested that the rest of us go to find Chloe and sit with her during lunch, as she no longer wanted to be with the other girls. At the time, the rest of us were hesitant because we already felt that she was untrustworthy due to her past behavior of sharing embarrassing details about us with the other group. Nevertheless, my friends went to get her at lunch. Chloe slowly reintegrated into our group and sat with us every day for the following months. Upon her return, I noticed several immediate red flags. For instance, it didn't take long before she began gossiping about the other group, revealing their secrets and speaking harshly about them. My instinct was that if she could talk poorly about her former friends a week after severing ties, she likely did the same when she stopped being friends with us to befriend them. We all understood that she would ultimately return to that group. It was merely a matter of time. Fast forward to the beginning of summer break, we had all grown weary of her. Chloe was excessively annoying and made frequent awkward comments and jokes about us. My friend, whom I will refer to as Cassie, and I had especially reached our limits and were just waiting for her to decide she no longer needed us and could return to the other girls. Cassie had previously dated a boy I will call Jack. Their relationship lasted just over a year and a half, ending a few months before summer. They remained friends, having agreed that their relationship was no longer working out and they were better off apart. Chloe had also recently broken up with her ex but had not maintained a friendship afterward. Then, in August 2024, our large group started hanging out with a small group of boys during the summer, which led to many sleepovers at each other's houses. In one particular week, we all decided to spend the night at Cassie's house in her spacious tent set up in her garden. Approximately 11 of us gathered there and spent 3 nights together. We would arrive at her house around 5 p.m. and leave the next day. On the first night, Chloe came but did not stay over, explaining that her father had allowed her to come only because there would be boys present. She left around 9 p.m. on the second night. She again did not spend the night, claiming her family had planned a trip to the zoo the next day, making it pointless for her to stay over. However, she assured us she would sleep over on the last night, which was somewhat disappointing as we had enjoyed not having her with us. On the second night, after Chloe had left, Cassie's ex-boyfriend messaged her on Snapchat, and at one point, it seemed as though he was with another girl. We dismissed it, assuming he was with his sister or perhaps his mother. The next day, when we returned to Cassie's house, we assumed Chloe would not sleep over again, but to our surprise, she arrived with bedding and a bag, indicating she intended to stay that night. By around 2 a.m., everyone was still awake. Chloe was being particularly bothersome, running around and shouting, jumping on us and making it difficult for us to enjoy a calm discussion before bed. Eventually, she settled down and joined the rest of us as we chatted amicably about various topics until we began discussing Cassie's ex-boyfriend. None of us had a high regard for him due to his poor treatment of her, and we were all aware of his terrible hygiene. The following day, once we had all gone home, we were texting in our group chat. Cassie sent me a private message, stating that she needed to share something confidential and that I shouldn't tell anyone. I assured her I would keep it to myself, and she revealed that on the second night when Chloe did not stay over, she had actually gone to Jack's house and slept with him, though they were not planning to enter a relationship. Chloe had confided in Cassie's best friend, who had known Cassie for over 10 years, and begged her not to tell Cassie, but of course, she would inform Cassie as they were best friends. I was completely astonished, and Cassie was furious. Days later, everyone ultimately learned about Chloe and Jack, which sparked a significant argument in our girl group chat. Cassie's main concern addressed how bizarre it was for Chloe to betray her trust and lie about where she was sleeping just to sleep with her ex-boyfriend. The day after, she acted as if nothing had happened and continued to gossip about him as if she had no romantic interest. I found it astonishing how inconsiderate she could be. Chloe seemed to perceive it as a minor issue. I will admit that Chloe did everything she could to make amends. She apologized for her actions, and although Cassie did not forgive her, she accepted the apology and attempted to move forward. A few days later, Jack messaged Cassie about us gossiping regarding him, which ignited another significant dispute. We suspected that Chloe had informed him, which was unsurprising yet still unnecessary. She was supposed to be our friend, but instead, she was gossiping about us to her ex-boyfriend. A couple of days later, we concluded that Chloe should no longer be part of our friend group, and we decided to distance ourselves from her. This resulted in yet another argument between us, and on that same day, she attended a party with Jack and the other group of girls. Subsequently, those girls began messaging us, asserting that Chloe had done nothing wrong and criticizing us for our justified response to her misdeeds. Following this, Chloe started spending time with the other group of girls again, which was predictable but still a violation of our trust after she had witnessed how negatively that group had affected me. By October, Chloe remained friends with the other girls. No longer did they tolerate her irritating behavior. They began to ignore her, making her sit at the end of their lunch table and excluding her from outside school activities. While this treatment is undeniably unfortunate, and no one deserves to be overlooked or treated poorly, I believe this is merely her karma. We had all anticipated that such consequences would arise if she chose to return to them. Several girls have since apologized to me and the rest of the group, acknowledging that we had been correct about Chloe and are now able to see her true nature. Presently, Chloe is still navigating her friendship with this group while enduring their continued disregard. Occasionally, I feel sympathy for her, yet I am quickly reminded of how she treated me and my friends. We extended a second chance to her, and she squandered it. Am I the antagonist? I would appreciate hearing an outside perspective and any advice, or whether we should have handled the situation differently. Additionally, I would like to clarify that all the individuals involved, including Chloe and Jack, are 16 years old. Story 2. Neighbor towed my roommate's car for parking near our garage. I got him towed 3 times after he parked in the fire lane. Mandatory on mobile, and although English is my primary language, I am not particularly proficient at it. This narrative primarily revolves around me and an unpleasant neighbor who is part of my community's homeowners association. Apologies if it becomes somewhat lengthy. To give you some background, my 3 roommates and I settled into a housing community composed mostly of similar-looking townhomes. Each of these residences features garages that open onto roads winding through the neighborhood, which is significant later, while the front doors lead to a walkway on the opposite side of each house. Additionally, there are some free parking spaces located at the perimeter of the community where no homes exist. Upon moving in, we quickly discovered that parking could be quite troublesome during the day, particularly when residents had guests over on weekends. My roommates and I admittedly possess more vehicles than the typical household. Since we frequently commute for work, each of us has our own car. We attempt to alleviate parking issues by utilizing the garage, but due to the abundance of sports equipment we own, we usually manage to fit only one vehicle in there. When all free parking spots are occupied, we would simply park our cars close to the garage and leave them there throughout the day or overnight. We had observed other neighbors doing this, and there was still ample space for vehicles to pass on the street. One day, an unpleasant neighbor approached while my roommates and I were in the garage organizing our belongings and informed us that we couldn't park there overnight, as it violated community regulations. Before we could respond, he added, "And if you do it again, I will personally ensure your vehicles are towed." His initial remark was fairly reasonable. We had just moved in and were unaware of that particular rule. However, his follow-up statement came across as arrogant and unnecessary. One of my roommates simply replied that we were unaware since we had just relocated, and we would no longer park there overnight. In response, the unpleasant neighbor, clearly attempting to assert his authority, retorted with, "Good. You better not, because I will be monitoring you." From that point forward, we adhered to those regulations. If we parked in front of our garage during the day, we made sure to move our car before bedtime. This arrangement worked well for some time until one fateful day. A roommate stopped by briefly after work to pick up some dinner and clothes before heading to his girlfriend's place. It was around 7 p.m., so he parked near the garage as it was quicker than finding a spot. Additionally, it was early enough that he didn't believe he would be towed. Around 8 p.m., as he prepared to leave, he discovered that his car was missing. Guess who was present? The unpleasant neighbor, standing right outside. He immediately said to my roommate, "I told you that you would get towed if you parked here again." The neighbor and my roommate engaged in a brief argument before my roommate went back inside to contact the towing company. However, it turned out they were closed, so he would have to retrieve his vehicle the following morning. The kicker: they would charge him an overnight fee. In total, this amounted to $500, which is not an insignificant sum for us. This neighbor has treated us poorly since our arrival, and even though it was not my car that was towed, I took it personally. To prevent future towing incidents, we decided to peruse the community rules, and lo and behold, we discovered that the street in front of the garage is classified as a fire lane, meaning no one is supposed to park there at any time during the day. Between the unpleasant neighbor's mistreatment and the countless occasions of him yelling at his wife every night, not a crucial detail, but worth mentioning to emphasize that this individual is truly unpleasant, I began to plot my revenge. Since the pandemic began, I have been able to work from home, and my desk conveniently overlooks the street between the houses. This positioning allows me to clearly see the unpleasant neighbor's garage. I soon started to take note of when he parked his vehicle directly in front of his garage. For about 2 weeks, I observed that he would return home around 1 p.m. and leave again at 2 p.m. During the 3rd week, I decided it was time to execute my plan. On Monday, true to his routine, he arrived around 1 p.m. After roughly 10 minutes, I called the towing company and reported that he was parked in the fire lane, requesting them to remove his vehicle. 20 minutes later, a tow truck arrived, hooked up his car, and towed it away. About 15 minutes afterward, the unpleasant neighbor emerged, and I could hear him begin to yell back into his house, presumably at his wife. He then left and did not return until later that evening after securing his car. While it was amusing to do this, I made sure to send messages to my roommates who do not work from home, but my plan was far from complete. This jerk apparently did not learn his lesson the first time, as he parked in front of his garage again the very next day. What did I do? I replicated the actions from the previous day, of course. Once more, the unpleasant neighbor emerged, realized his car was missing, yelled at his wife, and went to reclaim it. After that incident, he appeared to be more cautious and parked in an actual parking spot before entering his home for lunch or whatever he was doing there midday. He maintained this behavior for about 2 weeks before he deemed it acceptable to park in front of his garage once more. Well, who happened to be sitting at their desk every day and noted this immediately? That would be me. And being the concerned resident I am, I swiftly contacted the towing company, and off his car went again. Yet again, this resulted in more yelling. I wish I could say that the story culminates in a more satisfying conclusion, but after this 3rd incident, I opted to stop because I genuinely felt pity for his wife. who seemed to bear the brunt of his yelling as if it were her fault for his foolishness. What I can tell you is that it likely cost him over $1,000. If he had not had my roommate's car towed, we would never have discovered that interesting rule. The best part was that many of my neighbors would park in front of their garages simultaneously without facing any repercussions, making it even more amusing when his vehicle was towed. We have had several other encounters with him since this incident, and I have another tale that involves the actual homeowners association, which I will probably share later. That situation is still unfolding, so we will see how it resolves. Summary: a troublesome neighbor gets my friend's vehicle towed, so I have his towed 3 times. Addendum: removed initials and replaced them with unpleasant neighbor. Addendum 2: by popular demand, I have decided that this narrative will indeed continue with my actions. I have received plenty of suggestions about recording him yelling at his wife in an attempt to assist in that situation. I have also been advised to investigate whether he is using homeowners association funds to pay these bills. This last aspect may be a bit trickier to gather since we are merely renters, but I will explore my options. One thing worth mentioning is that he remains unaware that I am the one making the calls, and I intend to keep it that way. I will provide updates on my progress and any new developments.